From a plumber to an actor to a creative studio owner, this is the story behind the launch of Focal House. With just 24 hours to raise $200,000 after an investor pulled out, this is how I turned an idea into a reality. Welcome to the first episode, The Idea. So why a studio? I used to be a plumber. I did it straight out of school. I did it, I feel like, to appease my parents and try and just do what everybody did, right? Get a job that's going to pay well. I didn't love it, but it was good money and it was a way to, fund my funner part of life. Then when I was like 27, I decided that I had enough of the trade world. I hated it. I decided to investigate what it was that I thought would be more interesting in life, and it led me to the creative industries. Then I started studying, started at New York Film Academy. I pretty much sold all my plumbing tools. I went all in, and I did like 5 or 6 films when I was at the New York Film Academy. I was like, you know what, I love this shit. So I went all in. And then I ended up doing some shoots, and I got an opportunity from Jamal. He actually couldn't shoot Splendor in the Grass as one of the lead actors, and he sent me the lead. And I met John Baxter and Nick Stevens. These guys literally changed my life. I met these guys. They were the first people that I connected with as a new friend out of my normal life. So it was like friends in my new career. And they were like the first guys on the Gold Coast with the drones. They were shooting all the cool music film clips. They were doing the craziest, coolest stuff. And I was like, man, these guys are living it. So I started working with them more, met them. Their company was called the JN Collective, and they started doing music film clips. They've been doing heaps of stuff over the years, and I just attached myself to them. And they had a studio, and they had that whole life. They were all committed. So that was kind of the first taste of a new life away, like after studies. So plumbing, then studying, and then after that was like the first taste of this as an actual career path, as a life. And that was the first time I'd ever really been to a creative studio, and I had the best time of my life there. It was like this like beehive of like energy, and everybody that was going there was like working together, and it's just a space where creatives just gravitated towards. Being at that warehouse, I got my opportunity to sit at a table read for a project, and then that was where I pitched myself to Ken as a producer. And then I noticed that like that was where I was getting my work. If I was there, hey, we're in a music film clip, hey, working behind the set, and getting my on-site experience, so to speak. And it was like the way that I saw opportunity. And then when that closed down, that all went away. And that was, I suppose, frustrating, but also liberating in a way. It's like, all right, cool. Where do I fit into this world? So it's kind of like what can I bring to the plate? I was occasionally the actor, sometimes working behind the scenes behind John or behind Nick, and learning production with John and also Ken. So then it was like COVID. So for 2 years, went through this process, and I kept going back to that thought, like, we need a space like that. It's like I said, the beehive. It's like, that's where, if you have a hub, a creative space where all people that work together, all friends, can come together to network, just use it as a co-working space and get more work from it. That was the original idea. That was it. I was like, maybe I could create a space like that. And then I realized that there was a massive need on the Gold Coast. The more research I did, the people that I spoke to, they were like, yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, I'd come in. Rob Rivers with Nightfall. Yeah, I would love that. I'd come in. And I had like 10 people ready to go. Like, it was like a realization that it was a pain point for a lot of people on the Gold Coast and the local area as a space for creatives to be taken seriously, to work together. And then I was like, well, I could set up as a business and like hire out the space as well. So that was the concept. That was the first initial spark of an idea. Maybe I could create a space. And here we are. What would it actually take to make this happen? The next step for me was like, okay, how would it actually work? How would the physical planning come to play, come from an idea into a physical sense? How does that actually work? But then it was like a realization that it was like a commitment. It's like, well, how serious am I about my filmmaking career? I have an entrepreneurial mindset, I believe, and I love the idea of like coming up with ideas and seeing it the whole way through. And I realized through the process with Home Plate and then even the planning of Focal House, it was like a testament to my passion for this new world. And it had been a couple of years now, so I had a couple of stripes and I knew what I was doing, and I really did find a love for it. So it was more about me realizing that I needed to commit and knowing that there's something that people would need, and also how to do it. So the next step was like the money. So how big was I going to go? It always comes down to money, especially if you don't have money. It's a huge inhibitor. But if you let that hold you back and not realize that there's people out there with money looking for people with ideas, and they become a an alliance that can work together and you can both bring your value to it, then if you see it like that, then you can work together, right? So introduce Sean. I'm not going to say his last name. I think I'll just withhold from that. I don't think it matters. But I met an investor through a friend, just a chick friend of mine. She was like, knew that I was looking, I was putting things on socials, and she said, hey, I'm actually seeing this guy who's an investor, and I think that you two would really align. I think I should set up a meeting with you too. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So she did. I set up a meeting, went up to Surfers in this cafe, and I sat with this guy for an hour. It's like 7 a.m. And I pitched him a few ideas. I pitched him this product line that I'm actually launching this year, and then the studios and the idea behind it. And he loved the idea of the studios. He was like, yeah. He goes, Curtis, I think you're so passionate. I think that you'll pull it off. Some people just don't have what it takes. You've got grit, you've got passion, you've got desire, you're ready for it. He said, look, let's start working together and I'll show you how to pull it off. He brought the legal side, he brought bookkeepers, accounting, all of the main behind the scenes, actual core structures to what it takes to run a business. Because you can have the passion and the idea, but if you don't know how a sales process works or how to work with clients or how to market, all these things were new terminology to me, from tradie to actor, right? And then I then had to really get into, education mode and just really dive into what it's going to take to make this happen. And he was going to help me along that process. So for 6 months, I think it was like 4 to 6 months, we worked together. He was going to set up the operations. He was doing all the work in behind the closed doors, setting up the business structure, the corporate structuring, everything around how it's actually going to work. And I was going out and finding spaces, local spaces, find this, find that, getting the letters of people that are going to do it. And I was going through the process of writing down, or actually drawing out the plans of what I would do in these spaces. And he was like, you got to go bigger. So I was like looking at 80 square meters. So I was like, okay, 120. So I'd go find a warehouse, 120 square meters, get the plans, draw out what I'm going to do, sound studio here, photo studio here, offices here. He's like, see it? Bigger, Curtis. I'm like, oh, okay. And he said something to me which I will never forget, and I thank him for. He said, if you set a limit, like you're looking at a literal physical map of a building, it's like if you set your limits and you've already filled out that space, how can you grow? He's like, why don't you go bigger? Go to a place that you can't fill out the space with. Like you're already doubling up and you've got 2 rooms overlapping, go bigger. So he sent me a lease or a place in Surfers. It was just like an old backpack, is like 600 square meters. And he said, what about this? And I was like, whoa, it was like 4 times what I was looking at. I was like, whoa. And he goes, now we can grow. Man, imagine you could do events on the weekend. Imagine you could do this. Imagine you could set up a cafe out the front. I was like, wow, that's crazy. He said, Curtis, I'm paying for everything. I'm going to cash roll you for everything. Partners in this thing, you bring your passion, your connections, and we work together on this thing, and I'll show you how to do it. So then I found Focal House. I found this place. 3 warehouses turned into 1, 2 levels, and I put the plans together and I submitted it to him. He said, yeah, this is great. So this is the most important part that a lot of people don't really know about. I had put everything on the line to make this happen. I've been investing, working on this, working on that. I'd found this building, found this location, 1 Rothcote, Burley Heads, like I said, 3 warehouses, 2 levels, and it was a tilt panel, which my construction past, I could see that the outside of the building was the only thing that was structural. Anything else inside could be knocked down. So to me, it was perfect. And I said, Sean, this is it. He said, this looks great. Now you're talking. So I started doing the plans, and I'd been doing the plans for so long in so many of these places. I started getting RSI in my wrist. My wrist was like killing me for being on the computer for so long, for hours and hours and hours. And Bella was calling me the mad scientist because my hair was all frizzy. I'm like, bring me more coffee, more coffee. And I'm like putting them together. This is it, like the mad scientist creating this world. Yeah, they can do this, can do that, and it kind of it took the cap off, so to speak, of what's possible. Rather than thinking what you can do, it showed me what's possible. And I remember that moment in my mind. It's like, whoa, I could do this, I could do that. Oh, whoa, instead of going, I know what I can do in this size space, it's like, what could you do if you had unlimited space? So I submitted the plans, the studio, Nightfall, the sound studio, the photo space, offices, this, we got a huge courtyard, we get all this, it's great, it's cool, it's together, it's bang. He goes, yeah, let's do it. And at that point, I needed to put some money up for the down payment for the space. I was so committed this was the one, with every intention that Sean was going to come through with the money. I needed to come up with $10,000, which I didn't have. And I borrowed it off Bella. Bella backed me in that moment. She gave me the money. I think it might have been 7 and I had a bit myself. Not much, sounds like I had $3,000. And she backed me God bless her. Thank you for that. I wouldn't have had this place without that first step, right? Knowing how much I had it. We both were like, yeah, Sean's all in. That's great. So I got that 10K together. I gave it to the real estate and I signed the lease. And the amount of money that Sean was going to come in and invest was $200,000. He said this will be the first initial capital investment, which will get the space, which will allow us to build, to do construction. But there is going to be more money needed, cash flow, essentially, to run the business, advertise, staff into the future, right? So I knew that there was going to be more money needed. And I'd never been a commercial lease owner before or been a director of a company. So the real estate, they said, they were talking with the landlords and they said, look, we're willing to do it if he's willing to put up $50,000 just for a bond as a safeguard. And that's a lot of money. If I only had $3,000, right? It's a lot of money. So I was like, all right, well, yeah, I think that will work, right? Knowing that Sean had an extra access to more money if we needed it for cash flow for other purposes. So I signed the lease, went down to the landlord, to the real estate. I signed the lease, 6-year lease, 3 years in, 3-year option. We're cool, we're great, cool, thinking that money was going to come. Signed the lease. Then I started calling Sean. We're in, we got the space. Bella's money's in, all my money's in, I'm on zeros. And I was ghosted. Calling him, ghosted. Calling his right hand man, ghosted. I was like, what the hell's going to go on here? Am I going to lose the bond at least? Am I not going to get this property? Done all this work on the bones of my ass here, ready to do the biggest leap of my life. And he finally answered the day after. And he's like, hey Curtis, look, we've just done some restructuring in the company. We've got a new CFO. And we just can't do this right now. That's a lot of money. We've got so many other investments right now with our other investment business ideas as an angel investment company. We're just waiting for some more money to come back in. We want to do this with you. Let's just give it 3 months, 6 months. We just got to find it another place. We just can't allocate that money. I was like, I've borrowed money. I've made these plans. The real estate thinks we're going to do it. He's like, we just can't do it. We can't do it right now. I said, Sean, this is the place. This is the spot. Trust me. This is the local spot. It's the best. It's got the most room. It's expensive, but it's worth it. I know we can make this happen. He said, we just can't do it right now. So then I was faced with this massive decision. I was like, what do I do here? He's like, we might be able to get the money back. We might be able to give you some from the bond that you put down, the deposit you put down, sorry. And I was like, you know what? I just think this is the space. I think I can make this happen. And he's like, look, we could probably get you like a business loan with a creditor, a loans company, maybe $40,000-$50,000. And I was speaking to them, trying to make it happen. They're like, we can only give you $50,000. And I was like, that's only the keys. What am I going to do? Get the key and walk in here into this office space? I don't have any money. I had nothing. So then I thought to myself, he said, look, do you know anybody who would personally finance it as an investor? He's like, look, we'll be willing to step back as partnership and just take a sharehold. If we come up with the 50, you have to raise another 150. But there's that extra 50 as a bond. So I was like, I need another 250. I need $200,000. So I started making some phone calls. So I had 24 hours at this point till Friday afternoon, 5 p.m. to have $50,000 just to get the keys. And then I had a $100,000 bill to give straight to the builder to demolish the place and build and structure all the plans. So I started making phone calls, started meeting people, started going out. All the people that I met, angel investors, all these, calling them again. Hey, I've got the lease signed. We're in. I'm finally going to be a director for the company. We've already put a deposit down. I've got the plans. We've got the space, got the lease, got everything we need. And there was a lady by the name of Gree that I'd been working for at her house. I helped her do some renovations at her property. And I asked her. I went and asked so many people that I knew. I asked my sister who'd sold her house. I asked friends. I asked family. I just asked everybody. I was like, this is the test whether or not I really want to do this. And she said, look, I will back you. I sat down. There was a moment where I sat in a chair like this, and just like her and her friend were sitting beside each other. And it was like the Sharks episode. What's it called? That TV show? Shark Tank. And I said, hi Sharks. I feel like I'm in a Shark Tank episode. Here's my idea. This is the space I've got. This is how much it's going to cost. This is what I want to do. I told her where the idea came from, blah, blah, blah. And it got to the point where she said, look, I'm going to do it. I'm going to give you $50,000 right now to get you the key. I said, that's great. Would you give me 100? And she did. She gave me $100,000. That day we signed a lease, an agreement, sent me that money, and I was able to send the money to the landlord. And she said, look, I'm willing to come in for the other $100,000 if I like the space. I want to come down, I want to see it. So got the 50,000, sent it over, got the first 50,000, gave it to the builders, and came down here, and I had the key. So I was here, I was in, and I took the biggest leap of my life. And pretty much Sean walked away with some lessons from him, and lessons about, you know, yeah, I think I was tested to how badly I really wanted it. And it's that jump in the deep end and just swim kind of mentality. I just took the bull by the horns and took the plunge.